Welcome to Let Them Hear podcast. This is a podcast for anyone wanting to grow in their faith, family, or finances. Our objective here is to gift listeners with sound advice, sound doctrine, and a sound opinion to anyone who has ears to hear. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let Them Hear podcast. Today, I have one of my favorite people on the planet with me, Courtney McElvain, and she has been a friend of mine for many, many, many years. I don't know how many, so I probably should have figured that out before we decided to film this podcast, but I have her with me today, and we are going to get into a lot of stuff, but mainly we're going to stay focused on our finances and friendship. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and let's get into it. So
let's go.
Courtney, I want you to tell the people about yourself a little bit. Just give them an overview of who you are, what you do, family, all that jazz.
Okay. So currently I'm a financial advisor.
Awesome.
And I'm a mom of two, 15 and 12, and I've been married 20 years next month.
Come on. People aren't married 20 minutes.
That's right. But my journey to getting here has definitely zigged and zagged. And I think we'll probably get into this a little bit today. But when you go from one thing to the next, and I don't love the word reinvent, but when you change careers or you change where you want to start putting energy, and people are like, well, I knew you as a yoga instructor.
All right.
Who do you think you are trying to become a financial advisor?
Right. I know that one. That one.
Well, so 28 years teaching fitness.
Okay.
I took a break in March of 2021 after homeschooling the kids, just, prioritization of time and energy.
Right.
I was in the Army, so I was a linguist in the Army. So I'm a veteran, and thank you to all the veterans out there. That's getting celebrated this Friday. Yes. And my background is English literature, and so that flowed really well into the linguistics program in the Army. Yeah, running a business,
doing
fitness,
all the things,
and then finance. So,
and she does it so effortlessly. Like, I've known Courtney for a long time, and it's just insane to watch. I'm like, how do you do this? And Courtney always says, because I'm like, how did you go from this to this? And in my journey, which Courtney's walked with me through a lot of it, but of going from, everybody's known me as this thing, as either this business person or as an esthetician, and now I'm going into ministry. How do I, grapple with that people are not going to unsee me as that? And she's like, well, it's just adventures with God, baby.
Yeah, that is what it is.
You always say that. It's just adventures with God, baby. I'm like, how am I? Would you like me to explain that to the people? Oh, honey, I'm just having an adventure with God.
People either want to come along or not.
And that's it. But Courtney, you've done that so well. And I think watching it, truly one of the greatest gifts is to be able to watch how you've done that, because then it encourages myself, and I'm sure everybody else around you, but it encourages us to be like, we can do that too, because she literally lived, I always joke and say, you've lived 5 lives. She's like a cat, you've had a lot of different lives.
Without the near-death experience.
Right. Well, what's the, what language is it that you speak?
Well, I was a Korean linguist in the Army, but I've lost a large element of the vocabulary.
And then your husband speaks.
So he was an
Arabic
linguist in the Air Force.
Which is one of the hardest languages, correct?
Right. So it's actually quite interesting. So when you go into this linguistic program in the military, they give you a test called the D-Lab.
Okay.
And it's a really strange scale. So the top tier, I think it's 118. So it's not 100%. It's 118.
Okay.
And the test is insane. You walk in and you're like, I don't even know what I am looking at. And then you walk out and you're like, I don't know what I just took. It's just
really,
they're trying to assess capacity to be able to decode and to be able to find patterns.
So what you're saying is your husband's really smart.
Yes. And so we
love smart guys.
And he is. And he's brilliant. And so what they do is after they collect the results, they'll put you in a tier.
Okay.
And so the top tier languages were going to be Chinese and Arabic and Korean.
Right.
And then the next tier Down from there is Russian and a few others. And then the next tier down from there is Spanish. So depending on where you fall, then you know how long your program's going to be.
I think I would fall in
6 months.
I'd probably fall in Spanish.
Well, that would have been a fun one, right? Like, especially living in California. I took 4 years of high school. And still,
I think it would just be a testament to what I would be able to go ahead and test out. But that's okay. Not all of us are good test takers. But my mom did say, I was laughing that I said, you're married to someone smart, because my mom used to always tell me, marry a nerd. They'll never leave you. Oh. They love pretty girls. They'll never leave you.
Well, I mean, the conversations are fascinating.
Oh, they're fascinating.
I
could not be married to somebody that was not intelligent. I just couldn't. I'm so grateful. I'm like, my husband keeps me. I remember crying one time. He pulled out a theoretical physics book, and he's reading it, and then he continued it in the car, and he had it on audio book, and I was like trying to listen, and I think we get like a chapter in or whatever, and I just start bawling, crying, and he's like, what is wrong? Like, who died? Like, what happened? And I was like, I don't understand anything I'm listening to. And he's like, oh, he's like, bless you.
Takes pity.
Right. He was like, it's
well,
okay.
At least you're pretty.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's like, he's like, but your face. Like, no, but it's like, I don't know. I just think it's so amazing that, like, I mean, I think I'm a pretty intelligent person for sure. But when you're with like really bright minds, it's like just fascinating.
And they want to be around you for your strength of intelligence, right? And which has that spectrum of
which also ties into friendship.
Yes.
Which we're about to get into. Yeah. So I want to know, because the reason I had Courtney on here is because not only has Courtney been one of my great friends for many, many years, but and our friendship has evolved. I think, I don't even know, were you a client first?
We met at a friend's wedding. I'm thinking about this.
That's what it was. Okay, we met at a wedding, and I did your makeup, and then Courtney said that it was like her favorite makeup ever, and we just hit it off, and then we've just stayed in each other's lives and like all the different things. So the reason I had you on here is because I have many friends, you know that. Some of them also have amazing friendship groups. Some of them have really, really tragic situations that are, they call friendships. Right. And I'm just being real. So the reason I had you on here is because something I have always loved about you and really respected is that you keep really amazing people around you. You have very healthy friendships. Obviously, you've had your bout with like things that have not worked out in situations, but I just really wanted you to be able to impart your wisdom regarding friendship, because it's an area that you actually excel in and not everybody does. So I just wanted to have you bless the masses.
Thank you.
So can you tell our listeners what your friendship setup looks like? Like right now, what does that look like for you? Do you have like just one friend? Do you have like a bunch of friends, like different category? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, it's evolved, right? So it evolves as you grow, and it evolves as your priorities change and as your time gets to be more limited, i.e. children and their activities. So I think I just love all people, right? So in my 20s, it's like you throw the net out really broad, and whoever's fun, you're hanging with, right? And then 30s, you start having kids, and it's like, oh, I just kind of want to be home and stare at my baby for 2 hours now. Who wants to do that with me? Right. And then you're craving like kids' birthday parties because you're not really seeing a whole lot of people. And then it changes. And so now in my 40s, I mean, I don't want to sound cold at all, but it is really, I went through an exercise in 2020. I ended up with shingles in my eye. And it was just life-changing for me. I almost lost my vision in my left eye, but it was such a gift. That was like the thing I needed in life. Yeah. My husband was like, you need to just stop life. Right. And so I did. And so for 2 weeks, I literally stuffed myself in this white room in my house. It's a yoga reading room. And I just prioritized everything. Right. Where do I spend my time? Who do I spend my time with? Right. Who don't I want to spend time with anymore?
Right. Oh, hello. Come on.
What organizations do I not
preach to a pastor
spend time in anymore? And really, it got narrowed down to like, I can be a great wife right now to my husband. I can be a great mom to my kids. I can be a great financial advisor to my clients. And then we'll see where it fits from there. I know I love to read. I love to write. I love to take walks and exercise and do yoga. Who's going to be there for me doing those things?
And it's so interesting because you probably don't even realize this. But again, your health with that, in that area where you have designed your life that way.
Yeah.
Is something you impart to other people, because you imparted it to me.
Yes.
As I've grown and evolved, obviously, like anybody, you start a business, it's like, okay, you're full hustle mode, which I was, right? In that season. And now people are like, hustle this, hustle that. I'm like, oh, bless you. I can't wait until you get super saved. Because when you do, it's not about hustle. It's the grace, right?
Yeah.
God will give you all the grace to do the things you need to do, but it's not about like your own, might. Right. So, but when I was in that season where I was like grinding and hustle and everything was about like, I got to build, me stepping into this new season that I'm in where my life is very much designed by choice. You were instrumental in that, even if you didn't even know that you were, but just watching how you did life. And I'd go, that is like beautiful. And this is like, we're years back, but I'd go, that is just stunning how you're always happy and bubbly, which I generally am too, but your life was just so healthy. I was like, not perfect, but it was healthy. I was like, yeah, you have friendships, you have time to do yoga, you have time to take your walks, you have time to do, be very successful in the industry that you're in. But I was like, this is so beautiful. And I remember someone at one point saying to me like, oh, you're not gonna have time for that, or like trying to like put that on me, right? And I recall saying like, or they said, how do you have time for that? How do you have time for all these things? And I was like, I don't know, it's pretty easy. And at this point I'd kind of honed that skill. And I was telling you about it, and we were in your pool like in the backyard chilling, and I was telling you about it, and you were like, yeah, it's just by design. Like I made my life like this by design. Right. Like, and it's like, yeah, that's literally what it is. It's making your life.
Because it's really hard to say no to things that you like doing.
Correct.
But if it's not fitting in to 100% prioritization, then in that moment, and it could change, it's going to have to get sloughed off. Temporarily.
Right.
And it's all about
sometimes temporarily, sometimes
not. Like, okay, two things were hard. Stepping away from Rotary was hard. I love Rotary, and I want to be able to do that. But getting that hour and a half back to my week opened up my life. So I knew I needed to give that up, and hopefully I'll come back to another time when maybe I'm not raising two, a teenager and a preteen. Stopping teaching yoga. I've been doing that for 28 years. I love it. I'm so committed to my students at the YMCA. I loved teaching that class, and I had to say no to it. So there's things that you love doing, but it's like in that moment, that season, you can't do it anymore. So you just have to say no and be done with that decision. So I will actually mention, and this is helpful, I think, there was a book that I was thinking about this on the way here. You had recommended it to me. It's Darius Daniels, Relational Intelligence. So there's of course the IQ, right? Then there's the EQ, the emotional quotient we all know about. But then there's the relational intelligence. Yes. So that has to do with relationships and being able to say no to someone or some group that isn't fitting in your world anymore. And they modeled it after Jesus. So they said, okay, he had his three, his closest three, Peter, James, and John. Okay, then he had his 12, his disciples, right? Those were the followers. And those three were infused into the 12. And then he had the masses, right? And the masses would like drain him. And he'd be like, I'm giving.
He's like, I'm going to go away to a secret place, to a hiding place, to a mountain.
He would go walking. Like he'd go to the mountains. He'd go pray, have quiet time. He'd be gone, and people would be like, how long is he going to be gone for? I don't know. Like he'd just go missing. Because he was refilling himself.
It's like me on Instagram. I just disappear for years at a time. People are like, where'd Brittany go? I'm like, I went away.
And you come back reinvented.
I'm doing like, exactly.
So like Jesus definitely knew his identity and what drained him and what energized him.
I want to, for anybody that's not read this book that we're talking about, I just want to give a quick synopsis. So the book is called Relational Intelligence. It's by Dr. Darius Daniels, and he's a minister of the faith, and he is just incredibly smart. And what he does is, in this book, he breaks down the 4 different, basically friend groups, if you will, or like people groups in your life.
Sure, that most people have.
So
around their circle.
It would be your friends,
who they're surrounded by.
Right. And he gives like really great explanations of it. So it's like you have friends, and he defines what that is very clearly. Then you have your associates, which are going to be people that there's a spirit of friendship, but you wouldn't give them your pearls, right? You don't give your pearls a bit. Like there are people that are not close enough in your life that you would be sharing your deepest things with. And then you have your, assignments. So the assignments are going to be the people that you pretty much like God told you don't know why, but you're supposed to help this person. Like you're like a destiny partner, like you were put in their life to help them get to the place that they're supposed to be. And then you have your mentor / mentee situation. So that's like the main groups. And he wrote this book, which I find interesting. He wrote this book actually for the masses, but really, if you pay attention, it's more specifically for people in ministry, because he had learned through his many years, I think decades now of being in ministry, that people that had been within the four-walled church for a long period of time had no relational IQ. They didn't know what a friend actually looks like versus an assignment versus an associate. So people would mislabel things in that environment. And he, after decades of being in those environments, would witness it and go, oh my gosh, like these poor people, they like think this is their friend and that's not their friend. They were, you know what I mean? Or they think this is their friend. That's actually their mentor. There's a reason this person doesn't want to be including you in these certain things. And it's for these reasons. So anyway, he wrote this book to help bless everyone, but really more specifically for Christians. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because I found that was my experience as well. Being like in the four-walled church, this has been something that I've seen happen a lot, where people either don't know how to do friendship or they have misperception of who is their friend, what a friend actually is. And I was like, who has healthy friendships? Courtney.
Well, I mean, and connect the dots with that, but it's anyone who just loves people and wants to serve them, help them, have fun with them, be in business with them. So it helps anyone define who these people are in your world. So with that book in mind, I was like, let me try to evaluate what's going on in my world, because I just wanted to kind of compare. Yeah. So I have, I would say, two primary groups of friends. All right. So I have my friends that I met in college. Yes. Literally the first week of college. Right. And that was in 1996. Oh my God. And it was instant bonding. Yeah. And these girls, there's four of us together. We're actually getting together this Friday. I was going to say, and birthdays. You
steward that so well, because every time I'm talking to you, you're like, I'm going to actually go down to be with my college girls, or, and I'm the same way. So I get it. Like,
anyone who knows me knows their names. Right. And we have been through marriages, divorce, cancer, babies, new houses, moving up in your career, evolving. And what's interesting is they are not followers of Jesus. Okay. And they, when I sort of like, okay, what's some continuity between those best friends and then my local friends here who I spend my time with, who are followers of Jesus, and we meet every other week and we pray. And it's like, it doesn't come down to that for me. It comes down to, are you highly intelligent? Right. I enjoy surrounding myself with people who are intelligent. Yes. Are you wise? Right. Are you wise? Do you think things through? Right. Do you care to step forward in life in big ways and put so much good out there into the world? Right. Do you care if I say something super stupid? Right. Have you judged me? Like, is all the judgment, has that already been done? Right.
Has that been done? Have we assessed all my flaws from the jump?
Yeah, this needs to be done, because you don't want to have a guard up when you're with these people. You want to be able to be stupid,
yourself.
Say stupid things, and not have to filter it.
It's so funny you're using that word, because it's like the exact opposite of everything you are. Like, what is the thing that, I think me and your other friend Leah say the most is like, everyone needs a Courtney. Everyone needs a Courtney, because you're just you're light and you're joy, and truly like you're bubbly, but you're also intelligent. You use wisdom. You give sound advice. You're just a joy to be around, and you've been a faithful friend. You've always shown up. Courtney actually did one of the commentaries for my book from the beginning, Unveiling the Ordered Principles of Crafting Dreamlight. I'm all shameless plug, but no, you've just been. And not only in my life, but I think in a lot of people's lives, you really are just a joy and a bright light. And I think it's funny how we will put these words on ourselves that are actually incongruent with who we are, because the last thing on planet Earth that I would think is you're stupid. I think, you can be fun, silly, all these things. But,
I say stupid things all the time. I'm sure I'll say something stupid within the time frame that we're talking now. Just edit that out, okay? When they come up. No, I was going to say one more thing about that. So the other thing I really love, and this is, I think, why you and I connect so well, And this is hard to talk about because, again, I don't want to sound cold, but I enjoy truth telling people.
Right.
In a big way.
Yes.
And I feel like you are a huge truth teller.
Right.
And you and I are in marriages where we are given that safety space to be able to do that. Right. And the reason I know to say safety is because some of my friends, when I tell them this, they're like, I would have never been able to tell my, ex-husband XYZ because I didn't feel safe enough to do it. And it's like, that's a factor.
Right.
So I feel like more marriages would be intact if people just weren't trying to be so nice to the other person.
Correct.
It's like you can't just keep stuffing things. There are going to be so many things you talk about that are not just uncomfortable, but they're going to be downright mean. And you have to get that out. Totally. I don't know if my husband would agree with that because I've heard him say, like, if I told you those things, it would crush you.
Right.
And I don't know that I could recover. But I at least have the space to get it out.
But I think, I know, my husband does say the same thing. Actually, he's like, I can't tell you all of them. Like, he's like, you don't want to know. I'm like, yes, I do.
Maybe it's just for the ladies.
But I think that, obviously to a certain degree, they do have that ability to do that. And it is this like tandem thing of like truth telling. And I think you're spot on when you said that it is a matter of like safety, and that safety can be in the marriage or it can be in friendship. And so I have personally experienced many throughout. I mean, obviously, I'm 36, so I've had many friendships throughout my life. I'm one of those weirdos, I think, similar to you, that just had has lots of friends. I had a lot of bridesmaids. I just love women, right? And with that and all those relationships, what I've learned now that I'm moving into verging on going into the 40s is that everybody can't come the whole way. And at this point in my life, I'm at a point where I'm going to be myself so authentically. And so, I'm just going to always be Brittany. I'm always going to be a truth teller. And if you can't meet me there, then you have to go, because I no longer am in that stage of 16-year-old Brittany, 20-something-year-old Brittany, even maybe early 30, Brittany that would go, let me bend, I'll adjust so that you like me. I don't care if you don't like me anymore. I love all people. I will still love you, but I cannot bend to the will of man, because at that point, right, we're in idol worship, because now we're saying, even though God made me this very unique way, this very special way, I'm going to bend so that man will like me, so that, and I think you do that so well because you have such a vibrant but unique personality. You are yourself all the way through. So have you experienced in any friendships before maybe feeling, like you were being asked to bend or change, or have you experienced any hardships that have caused you to like sever ties? And if so, how did that kind of like go? How did you exit? I want the people to be blessed by this. So I want to give them strategy.
So have I had hardships in friendships? Yeah. I mean, definitely. There's been some hurtful things. And especially if there's people who I share faith with, and those friendships have not made it to this point. It's almost doubly sad in terms of you asking if people have, if envy has been the dividing factor. Not on my end. Not that I don't envy. I mean, I envy that you've finished your book and like have it as a tangible thing.
I know,
in front
it's like
of
a
me.
real thing now. I know. It's like,
I envy that, right? So
well, you're getting there. Courtney's writing a book too.
It's not that I don't envy. I'm not saying I don't have a problem with it. I'm saying that I think envy is a really hard thing for people to process through. And so if friendships have, and it sneaks in real quick. Right. I even just identified it in myself a couple weeks ago with something professionally where I was like, okay, this happened today. Let me process that through and examine that later today. Right. So I go out walking and I'm like, okay, what's bothering me? Why am I bothered by this? Oh, okay. It's because I envy. Okay.
I love you.
All right. So what would happen if I didn't identify this and process through it? I would have been really mean to these two people. Right. And I wouldn't have known why. Right. I would have just been a little bit kind of like never dealing with it. Always like, well, there's an opportunity I missed, and I could have done this too. It's
or like, you would have. Sometimes it manifests different even than that. I love that you brought this up, and I'm laughing because I never said that the friend had to be envious, but you were like I've never had a friend envy. I was like, I didn't ask that. I asked if a friend. and ask you to adjust who you are. Anyway, sorry, but I got a giggle out of that. But I love.
I thought I listened well.
Yeah, it's okay.
No?
It's okay. It's okay. I just love that about you, and this is why I say and I proclaim from the mountaintops: Courtney is not perfect, but she is so healthy. You're so healthy because those are the types of things healthy people do. So I experienced the exact same thing years ago. There was a woman, and I love this lady. I love her. She's a wonderful human. I could not tell you why. She just worked my nerves. I just didn't know why. I was like, she just works me. Like, I don't know. I don't really prefer her. Like, I was like,
we don't click.
We don't click. Like, I was like, there's something odd. Right. And I was like, I just couldn't figure out what it was. So I'll never forget this. So my husband and I are in our house and I'm pulling out like all my vision boards, and I make vision boards generally every year. I think I haven't made one in like the last 2, but generally I would make them to see something like tangible in front of me. And he pulls it out and he starts laughing. He goes, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "How funny is this?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Did you ever realize this looks just like so-and-so's house? Did you ever realize that this looks just like so-and-so's pool? Did you ever realize this looks just like so-and-so?" And I think my eyes about fell out of my head. I was like, it was like Jesus came down, opened up the heavens and like revealed to me, "Baby, you don't like her because she's
totally
living.
Jealous.
You're jealous of her. You just." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It was so beautiful that God revealed that. And instead of running from it, instead of going, "Oh, no, I'm not. I have pride," carrying that pride, that spirit of Leviathan. Instead of doing that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you." I'm not lying about this. I really can't remember a time being jealous. So like, I was like, this is not me.
It sneaks
I
up.
was like, this is not me. I'm actually not a jealous person. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. So I thank you, God, for revealing that to me. And now, how can I bless this person? How can I encourage this person? How can I ensure that anytime there's like a foothold, that like an opening for the enemy to come in and really sabotage? Because when we covet, right? Well, that's one of the commandments, is like not to covet, right? When we covet what other people have, God's like, "I can't bless you because you're actually not in the work."
It festers.
Right.
And then more sin develops from there.
Correct.
So you did 2 things with what I just heard. You were willing to confront what was inside of you that you didn't know was inside of you.
Right.
So therefore the veil was removed.
Right.
And you had somebody around you that pointed that out.
Correct.
To you.
Correct. And then heeded the advice, because I have tried to open other people's eyes. Truther over here. Not like QAnon trooper. There's truther. But like for those of you that are QAnon troopers, go you, I guess. I'm not political, so I don't know. But like, I'm like truther in the sense that I speak the truth out loud often, and it usually agitates people. It really agitates their pet demons, is what I call them. So anytime... It does. Anytime they got a lot of demons in them, they get agitated by the truth. They're like, "I don't like this girl. She's always saying stuff. She's always saying the truth." That's what's always happening. I'm exposing.
I don't want to hear. They're not willing to confront what's going on.
And then you'll notice something with people like that. They stay in the same spot.
Right.
That's what happens.
Right.
Is because and I've seen it in all areas. I've seen it for decades. And I think probably at this point in my life is the first time I know enough about what's happening to be able to articulate it.
Yep.
But I can recall seeing it in high school. I can recall seeing it in my, family lineage and certain individuals. I could recall seeing it in friendships. You know what I mean? And now fast forward to current times, I can see it. And now at least I know what's happening. And I'm like, that's why your situation's like that.
So we have a tool that helps us to allow those things that could bury and fester to surface. And in the old school, it's called prayer of examine. And a lot of people in, say, the Catholic Church don't do this until Lent. Okay. But why not do it daily? Call it something else. Right. It's just a self-examination tool.
Right.
And so at the end of every day, and I know a lot of people are doing this like at dinner time with their kids. Like, what are your highs today? What are your lows? What are you excited about tomorrow? Right. Okay. That's one way to get kids started to think in this way. Right. But as an adult, we don't make the time for it. Right. But I really encourage people to, just because sometimes there's the subtle thing, subtle conversation, subtle word, subtle experience, subtle thing that you saw that will show up in your dreams, and you don't take the time to
I do every day.
But when you do that sort of examination exercise, you just say, okay, what bothered me today? And that's the word for it, bothered. What's bothering me? And maybe there's nothing. That's awesome. Good for you. But maybe it's, that one sentence that client said, or that one thing my friend said, that's bothering me. Well, why is it bothering you?
Right.
Then you start thinking it through, and then you invite God to enter into that.
And if everybody's bothering you, it's you.
That is true. And then on the flip side, where did you feel God's presence today?
Right.
What really brought you joy and energized you and excited you today?
Right.
And stay in that area.
Right. Right.
Do more of that.
Totally. Well, I think that's the thing, is that women, more specifically, I would say, because men have a tendency to, they can get bogged down, and I'm overgeneralizing right now, but I think women usually have a harder time giving themselves permission to actually do things that they enjoy, giving themselves permission to have hobbies, giving themselves permission to actually do friendship well.
Right.
Even in friendship. And I found myself in this, so this is not coming from a place of judgment, but we have a tendency, even by nature as women, to go, I want to strive so that people stay in my life. So I'm going to, that in itself is now going to become a job.
Or people will think I'm lazy if
Correct.
I don't keep going.
Correct.
It's like,
correct.
But how about rest?
Right. But I think that those things can only be imparted when you are close to the Father, and when you rest and abide in his presence, and the knowing that your value comes from being a creation of God. Your value does not come from the being assigned to this person as a wife. You don't even get husband and wives in heaven. So so it's like your value doesn't come from, you're this person's best friend. Your value doesn't come from you're the mother of these people. Your value has to come from being a child of God first and foremost. And if it does not, you are going to see it manifest in your life as stress, anxiety. People aren't going to want to be around you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
true. And I would say, I know you've had a recent situation where some really good lifelong friends they're not with you right now.
Right.
They don't want to be with you.
Right.
And you,
and I really don't want to be.
All right, I've exhausted this. I don't want to be with you either. And so there comes that sort of loss, and you have to grieve it, and you did, and who knows if that'll swing back around. I'm sure you pray for them. So my college friends, they have seen me go from like, hey, I'm at Sonoma State partying and having fun, to I'm going to go to my private school now. I'm going to go do mission work. To where I am now. Right. And they like, do we share in the knowledge of Jesus? No. Right. But are they with me and encouraging and supporting and loving? And when I talk about it in the way I do, they're like, all ears are open. They do. And it also tells me, just because we're stuck in this time right now, we're about to get into quantum physics. Right. But I have every hope that like God's got them. God's got them. I know I'm in their life for a reason. They're in my life for a reason. Will I be in eternity with them someday? Yeah, we're in it now together. Right. But that veil has not yet been removed in their life. But I think there is a knowing. And so I look forward to that. So it's like you kind of, keep the people close to you where you're bettering them and they're bettering you. And together, your guys' lives are better.
Right. And if that's not happening, we have to get to a point where we say, okay, I can love you, but I now have to remove you from my life. It's like, what does it say? Tell the mountain to be removed and cast into the sea. Yeah. like it's like, be thou cast into the sea. you're gonna have to be removed now, because if the relationship is no longer edifying, if the relationship is not iron sharpens iron, right? Yeah. And I love when people misuse iron sharpens iron. It cracks me up. I love hearing people that do not have iron sharpen iron relationships say that they do. And I'm cracking up because I'm like, okay, as you can see right here, you might be a little bit iron, but this person is like plastic. So like, this is clearly not iron sharpened iron. It's just not. Right. But I think what happens, and I always use it from this perspective, but I think the pet demons, the pet demons attract is what it is. So the things that they don't like about themselves, or the things that God is not in and not a part of, right? The things that are coming from the enemy that are in them, covetous, It could be that. It could be, abuse of alcohol. It can be idol worship. You know what I mean? It could be whatever it is, right? Like narcissism. Narcissists love idol worshipers. They just love it, right? They're like, oh yeah, you'll worship me? Great. I love this. So people that generally have their pet demons like attract to each other, those are people that have a harder time getting rid of relationships, even if they're unhealthy and toxic. People that do not have that issue, right? So I can, and you can as well, as we just discussed, actually stop, self-reflect and be like, okay, hold on. That is actually not of God. Like that feeling of jealousy, that's not the Lord. That's actually the enemy, and he has no space here. Right. We're going to get that. We casting that out now. So there's a difference, because when you're walking like that and you're consistently being aware of the tactics of the enemy and the schemes of the enemy, and you're removing any of that, removing bitterness, removing all these things, covetous, removing jealousy, envy, you have a propensity to be able to be in more healthy relationships. But people that don't self-examine do not. And then they keep other people around them that are at that same level. Yep. So even if it doesn't manifest the same way, right? On the external, it doesn't matter, because really what it is the internal stuff.
I would say if there's one takeaway to this thing,
right,
it's self-examine.
Right.
Be self-aware. And that's hard, because like I will say, there's a lot of people getting divorced right now. That was a thing, right? In 2020, it was just like, it's been a thing, but it was like exacerbated in 2020. People were like, I don't want to be stuck with you for let alone a week.
And then the car fire in our area, remember? All the houses burned down. Everybody got divorced after.
That's right. The consistent thing I continue to hear, not just with people here locally, but beyond, is usually I'm talking to the ladies, and I'm sure it's not just the men who aren't self-aware, but that has been a consistent theme that's come up, is he just doesn't see where he was in the wrong in any of this. Right. And there's cases stacked against this person. And it's kind of like, he's just not self-aware. And so, and it goes for ladies too, right? I'm sure the guys are saying, okay, I can't stay with this person because of that reason. So self-examine. And so what are you using as sort of like, what's the benchmark?
Right.
What are you examining against? Right. Because it's not subjective.
No. And that's why this is why we need the word of God, because there has to be like, who denotes what is righteous and what is wrong, who denotes like any of this. So if you don't know, it's all gotten
blurred these days, so everyone's confused,
right? Yeah. And then that cracks me up even more, is if you say people are confused, everyone's like, you can't say that. I'm like, sure I can. You're confused. That's just what it is. Like, and if you I think even as believers, which I guess that most people listening to this are believers, and if not, I love that you're here. Stay, please.
We love
you. We love you. Good on you. But if I think for believers that are listening to this,
it's all intense,
right? They have to have an understanding that just because you're a believer doesn't mean that you're exempt from Pharisaic behavior. And the Pharisees thought that they knew what was up, right? The Pharisees and Sadducees thought, like, we know how to do this. Yeah. We are the righteous people. I'll tell you right now, the people I know that think they're the most righteous, that think that they're the most, anointed because they, either have been Christians their whole lives, or they are operating the church, 4 walls, or any of these things. It cracks me up because they're generally the least self-aware people. You generally don't realize when they're operating out of spirits of demonic, of the enemy, instead of spirits of God. So it's that self-examination, and we all, as the body of Christ, have to be doing that consistently if we want to see good fruit being bore in our friendships and relationships. So I want to touch on finance, because you are a well of knowledge in this, and obviously there's some things that tie together when we talk about finance and friendship. So I think some of the main things would be like the idea that, finances require stewardship. Yeah. So do friendships, right? Finances require patience, and they require investment, right? Wow. And so do friendships. Finances, they get more valuable and they become assets over time. And that's obviously what we hope for with our friendships. So can you just give the people a couple nuggets? Just give them a couple nuggets, and it can be like anything, but just give them a couple of either revelations about finance and how to look at the finance, or give them some insight as to how they can actually actively change their financial situation. Okay.
All right. So first, there to your point. So there's a quote by Dan Sullivan. He's an author. 10x is easier than 2x. If you've read that book, it's a great book. Not. And I think he's 78, a lot of wisdom. He coaches entrepreneurs. So his quote is, how you do one thing is how you do anything. how you do one thing.
So good.
How you do anything.
So good.
And it's so true.
It's a word.
So from a wealth creation standpoint, and I do not back away from that word wealth. I actually love that word wealth because of what it implies. And I get kind of melodramatic when I think about it because it implies so much. So I have, in my office, I have 2 huge computer screens, stock market, ticker symbols. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes people think of the stock market as this, it's complicated, it's complex. They don't look at the granular of what it actually is. Right. So each of those little blinking lights represents a company. And that company represents an innovator. Mm-hmm. One person or 2 or 3, whoever wanted to start it, who had inside them the idea to create, innovate. Mm-hmm. They were inspired. They wanted to produce a good or a service to impact the world for the better. That's that's the human spirit. So when I have clients come in and they're just like down on the world and the future, it's like, well, let's talk about if the stock market's for you, because it really is. I think it was Warren Buffett. He's the quote. I'm going to botch it, but it's something like, wealth is a transfer of money from the impatient to the patient.
Oof, come on.
Okay, so that implied in that, it's not just patience and time to be successful. It implies hope.
Right.
In an unknown future.
Right.
And that's what the stock market represents. And it goes back to the human spirit.
Right.
Like, even if this world comes to an end, that's still there. Right. People like to be productive. People want to create. They want to create
That's
futures.
What they're built for.
This is what we're designed to do. So when you see that little blinking ticker symbol, it is representing creativity, innovation, excitement for the future, and things that energize people, building out, planning, right? It's so cool to be a part of that. And so that's what wealth is. Wealth is you doing those things. Right. It is planning, it is measuring and then cutting, and then building people up so that you can then do that and replicate it, right? So it's just this entrepreneurial spirit that's so beautiful and cool and exciting.
Do you, as a financial advisor who obviously works mostly with like stocks, right? Stocks, bonds, like that type of thing.
Yep.
Do you have any specific opinions on people that are like, hey, I'm actually terrified of the stock market. Mm-hmm. I prefer to do real estate. Or, hey, I've never done any of it and it's all scary. Like, do you think there's any one way to win wealth, or do you think that diversification is, the main tool, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where it's at. That's and that is the answer to how do you invest in the present moment for an unknown future?
Right.
It's through diversification. We actually call it asset allocation.
Right.
So an asset can be real estate, it can be a stock, and it can be cash. And cash is paying again, finally. Bond, whatever it is, but you want to have exposure to all of it because you're never going to hit it right.
Right.
You're never going to hit, it's something different each year that's going to be the top or the winner that year. Right, and you may hit it right once, but you won't hit it right again.
Right.
The chances are very low.
Right.
So if you're exposed to all of it, then you'll win. You're ahead 6, 7, 8 times out of 10. You're winning. You're ahead, right? You're going to fail at some point, but you're still ahead.
Well, it's that patience.
Going for it.
It's that patience, because I've seen things go up, down, around the corner. I think I've talked to your parents even, who were also your father was in finance, and I remember talking to your mom about it, and I think it was it 2005 or 2008? When was the crash?
2008.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that, and she's like, and then we freaked out, but it all came back, like,
and it did.
And it's like, and it did.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've told myself with all the things. And like, Courtney gets mad at me often.
I do?
Not mad at me often. That's a lie. Courtney does not get mad at me often.
It's like,
well, Courtney was giving me a hard one time of the year. She's like, Brittany, are you going to be investing in this? And I was like, so here's the thing. Here's why I have it. And I'll never forget you're like, because I said, well, I just have a lot going on right now because I, bought this building, and then we bought the other building, and then we're doing this, and you went, so you're having, you're what did you say? You're diversifying assets. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And you're like, so you're putting your money in other assets that are also going to grow in value. And I was like, right too. I was like, oh yeah, that is what I'm doing, But it's like so funny because I was like, I found that for me, real estate, just for my personality type, it was like, oh, this feels this is a little more my speed. Like, and it's not that that's all I want to do, right? But it was like, oh, I found that this was something because I was tangibly, actively a part of it. It feels so different.
So this is what I see a lot with younger investors. I'm going to consider you a younger investor. People in their 20s, 30s, even 40s, is they're excited and there's so many things they want to do and they've talked to so many different people and they want to do everything at once.
Right.
Okay, so usually this is where I spend my conversations with those clients is it always comes down, well, regardless of the age, it comes down to what do you want to do? Right. What do you want? What are your goals? What are you looking at in the next year? What's on your heart for the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself in the next 20 years? So that's where it starts. And then the money fuels those goals and those dreams and those ideas and those passions. So, but the younger people, it's like everything all at once. Right. And then in the financial planning process, which is so important, I can't emphasize that enough, you kind of peel back the layers to then prioritize first things first. It's the whole Stephen Covey thing. Right. First things first. What can we do right now? And then kind of give yourself some action items. Right. And then when can we complete those action items in?
And some people feel like they have the spirit of delay even. So you were talking about young people, right? And the way that they view it. But I know many people that are older than me, who have they're like, whoa, wait, I'm just learning all this and now I feel behind.
Right.
And so do you have any words of encouragement to people that might feel like I missed the boat, I missed the mark, you know?
Yeah, I do. I see those people too.
Yeah.
And those people need to confront what they have been delaying on, which is, do you have enough income for your 50s, for your 60s, for those people typically I've seen, they actually want to retire. They haven't planned really well. They want to work. They want to hit, say, 62, and they actually want to not do what they're doing anymore.
Right.
I've just seen some patterns there. Not everybody, but they just haven't wanted to really plan. They've gone to work every day. They've come home. They've had dinner. It's been a little bit more routine. So, it's not too late, but they need to know their numbers. Right. Given what you have saved up, do you have enough? You need to know your numbers, project out from where you are to see if you have enough financially to support the lifestyle that you want to live in when you're no longer working.
I love that you commented on whether or not, like, what do they want to be doing, whether or not they want to be working, because I know that I'm the type of person that could just never retire. I go on vacation for a week and I'm like,
to a lot of people.
I'm like, okay. And I like, a week is like my max. 2 weeks. And we went to Bora Bora for like 10 days. I was like, day 10, I was like, I mean, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been, but get me home. I need to do something. Like, the internet's too slow here. I can't do, I think it's all about knowing yourself. So I don't know that I will ever retire. I think, I mean, especially as a working for God, it's like evangelists shouldn't have a retirement. Like, not in terms of financially. I'm saying that's something I want to do for the rest of my life. Right. But there is something to be said about having a point of income that you don't have to if you don't want to. So that's the difference, right? Is like, not do you want to, but it's just, do you have that option to not work if you don't want to work, right?
And could you financially retire?
Correct.
And then there's the lifestyle piece.
Right.
And then I see sad situations too. I see people that have worked for a long time and then they finally retire and they get sick.
Right.
And then someone dies. And so they aren't getting to live out this sort of dream life they've waited for. So then there's the balance of, okay, when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, invest, save, plan, but live.
Right.
Like, really live and do the fun things. Take the vacation to Bora Bora to know that you don't want to be gone for 2 weeks.
Which we saved up and paid cash for. Okay, we saved a year. We did not I'm just being clear because, I think people sometimes will go, and especially with the spirit of, I mean, now we have reality TV. So people are just, I want to keep up with the Joneses. I want to keep up, and it's like, no, I mean, most of the Joneses are broke. Let's start there. And then second of all, everybody's situation looks different, right? So in business, you're going to see that people drive nicer cars. Yeah, because they need the write-off, right? So there's going to be, you're going to see a lot of things that may not make sense if you are not in that certain position, right? And so it might present a certain image, but the reality is they were going to pay the money either way. They were going to they were going to give the money to the IRS. Yeah. They were going to put the money into an investment account, or they were going to buy a depreciable asset.
Those judgments on people's time are just crazy to me. Okay, quick story. So, do we have time for a quick story? Okay.
I got all the time in the world, baby. You're the one with a limit.
there was an owner.
Yeah.
Company owner goes on a trip. Mm-hmm. You're going to know this story.
Am I going to know the story?
Entrusts 3 of his employees with his business endeavors while he's gone.
Okay.
He's like, hey, first employee, because of your unique capabilities, you're in top management, I'm going to give you $500,000 to work with while I'm gone. Okay. Next employee, you're a little below him because of your unique abilities. So I'm going to give you $200,000 to do something really wise with while I'm gone. Prove to me that you can do this.
Right.
Okay. Third employee, you're lower level. I'll give you $100,000 to work with and see what you do with it. Okay. So the company owner comes back after a month or 2 months and is like, okay, let's see what you did. I've demonstrated how to grow, how to invest, how to be a good steward of the money. Let's see what you did. So the first employee comes up, hey, I doubled the $500,000 to $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. Good job. I'm going to give you more because you just showed me you know how to be responsible and a good steward of the money. Awesome. You have stepped into what I've modeled. Great. Maybe I'll train you up to be me and I can sell this company and move on, right? Whatever that is. Okay, so the $200,000 person, cool, doubled your money. Now you have $400,000. Great. What'd you do with that with the company? Awesome. You're really growing into the vision I have for this company. Right. What did the third employee do? Third employee, well, I see that you collect all this money from other people. You're building all these other businesses. It doesn't really seem like you work that hard. I've heard that you're kind of harsh with people. I don't know. I just kind of was afraid. And so I just kind of clung on close to that money. I didn't lose it.
Put it under their mattress.
I put it under my I didn't lose it for you. I still have it, but time has gone on. And I know you wanted me to do something with it. But, you know, I feel a little bit entitled that you've gotten all this and done all this. And I'm just kind of down here and you only gave me $100,000. You give this other person $500,000, right? And so the owner's like, I do not enjoy what you did with this. I'm going to go ahead and fire you. You have not followed what I've demonstrated. Be gone with you. Right. And you know this story.
This is the parable in the Bible.
This is the parable of time and talents.
That's it. Yeah.
So Jesus, well, I mean, he's telling a parable, right? Which is it's an earthly story with a heavenly meaning.
I was like, this is the Bible parable. I know this story. I was like, she's switching it to business, but I know what she's talking about.
Because that is the business story, right? It's about economizing, where you can tell he's good with his money, right? He doesn't spend where he needs to. He reduces costs, but he capitalizes. Right. He sees the talent. He sees the people that can build out his company the way he wants. He's demonstrating it in a wise way. He's trusting, taking the risk on people, trusting them with what he's built. He goes away. Who knows on what? Probably a work trip. And then there's the third person who's like, you know, feeling entitled and feels jealous and is so trapped in his fear that he is stagnant and aimless. And the company owner in this story does not want this person, you know, it's not, you look for the who's in your company, right? It's the who.
It's the who.
This guy's not a who.
Right. Well, it's interesting, and not just in company, but in life, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to give my own parable. No, I'm just kidding. But, okay. So I'll make it quick. But so I think it was 2 years ago. It was during 2020.
Yes.
I was having a baby. I was like, oh my gosh, I just had a total identity crisis. I went and bought a Subaru. No shade on anybody that buys Subarus. Great for you. Awesome for you. I felt like a totally different human. I was like, this is not me. I'm a Rover girl. I was like, this is not it for me. I just felt like I was like depressed every time I got in the car. And like, it just didn't feel like me. So, right. So my husband was like, this is like weird. All my friends were like, we're just so confused by your situation. Like, what are you doing? I was
there's me. I'm like, is it white? Is your car black?
Yeah.
Like, I like literally do not even know.
So I was like, okay, well, this just doesn't feel like me. My husband goes, just get rid of the car and go get the car like you want. Yeah. And so the car I wanted was like, it's a pretty nice car. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I just want to really honor the Lord. And I made this was my reasoning, verbalizing, you know, like this is the reason that I verbalized externally, but internally, it was actually a value thing. I was like, I don't deserve the car that I want, right? Inside, I was like, no, who do you think you are? You don't get to do this, right? So I'm saying this part of the story because it's relevant. So I ended up not buying the car that I wanted. I ended up buying the car that was similar, exact same type of car. It was like a older model, and like many years older. And I drive out to Utah. I go pick up this car, and as I get home, I mean, it was like everything started over the course of 3 months. Everything in this car just started falling off. Like, and it wasn't even like engine stuff. It was like just things just started falling off the car. I was like, what is going on? Like I just bought this, like, Lord, And then I end up having some engine problems. Well, the car breaks down on the side of the road. I have my baby in the car. It was out of nowhere. We found out it was a technical issue. It was like actually a really easy fix, but it was something that like happened with a sensor. And long and short of it, my husband goes, "You're not driving the car anymore." So he's like, "You're going to get the car that you wanted." And me being a believer and trying to work on my biblical submission to my husband, I said, "Well, can I go pray about it?" I pray, and the Lord says, "Go get the car that your husband said to get." So I said, "Well, they're not going to have it." When I call, lo and behold, they didn't have it. They call me back 5 minutes later. "We have no clue how, but the exact car you want, the exact color you want, the exact rim kit you want is here. And we swear that car was not here." So they said, "We can drive it down to you." So they drive the car down, clearly a God gift, right? All this to say, I kept the other car. Now, I had people in my life, many people, who judged me. Many people who judged, "Oh, well, she has two Rover. Who she thinks she is? She has two this, she has two that." What they didn't know is that Brittany's actually just a good steward. So what I did is, instead of getting rid of the car, right, I went and fixed the car, spent a couple $1,000, fixed the car, and then put the car on an app called Turo, and then rented the car out. So I rent the car out now. Correct. Yeah. The car now pays for my mortgage. Yeah. So
it's interesting because I have noticed in general, for people who follow Jesus, talking about material items doesn't get brought up a lot.
Right.
And it's like, what a miss, right?
That's why we're doing this, baby.
It doesn't get talked about a lot, and it should. I mean, even stuff like I got this wedding ring. Right. This was a gift from my husband. Right. He surprised me. Right. 18 years it was on Valentine's Day. Right. I had my grandma's, this wedding band forever, and I've never once had a passing thought about wanting any other ring. It wasn't a big deal to me. And turns out he wanted to surprise me. He had wanted to do this since we first met, since we first got married. He had this vision for me to have this ring, and he was going to give it to me on our 25th wedding anniversary, but he wanted to surprise me. And I was like, I'm surprised. That's right. Yeah. But I couldn't take the gift. I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. It was like, okay, but there's, people even just in our town that are hungry, and we could have donated this or could have done this, right? And I had to do the same thing. I had to have a soul searching moment, and I prayed for a couple days on it. And then I realized, okay, this is a gift. And my only job right now is to receive this gift. That's it. So it's like your job in that moment was to really navigate, okay, yes, it's a car. Okay, it's a car. But let me look and see the circumstances around me. Things are falling apart. Let's go back to this original idea that was on my heart. Let me step into that and kind of put blinders on with what the people around me will say about me.
And that's the thing, is it's the blinders. We have to be in business. If you're going to be, do you know how many people I know who, not just in my industry, but people, like you said, that will be the people that hoard the thing, right? They hoard the money, and then they go, well, now I'm just envious. I'm jealous. Well, you have all this.
Employee.
Right. That's it.
Yes.
Oh, you have 2 Land Rovers and I have only this. Well, maybe I did something different. Right. Maybe I did something different.
Maybe it looks different than what you're thinking, because my experiences have led me to be able to do this. Correct. And they're judging you in a single moment, not knowing all the backstory.
No, they don't. Well, it's the same as with business, right? People step into the work of your life, the work that you built, right? Like I've spent my life since I was 16 years old building out what is now Guild Beauty Bar up to this point, right? And people will see that. They see that this is not the end. Mama, I decree it. We're gonna have a lot of these, but they see up to this point and they go, oh, well, she has all of this, not knowing the story and what it took to get to this point. Right. Then maybe step into it, whether, it could be clients that see it, it could be people that work there, it could be whatever. But like people will step into something and go, I want this. And that covetous spirit is actually the thing that will keep you trapped, because it can't be covetous. It has to be eager to have knowledge and revelation. How did you do this? Tell me more about what this looks like behind the scenes. Right. Tell me, do you see what I'm saying?
Listen, understand, and learn. It's all mindset.
Right.
So if someone's, you're calling it a spirit of envy and jealousness, and yes, that's what it is. But it really comes down to the thoughts going through that person's mind, and then of course what's getting them there is their interpretation of their experiences that have gotten them to that point. Right. So maybe they haven't taken the risks. They've had to work harder. They've never learned how to zip over to the okay. I've worked really hard. I will continue working hard, but there's a way to work smarter too. Right. And keep that's that book. 10x is easier than 2x. Right. 2x in your life. Okay, you're doing the same thing you're doing. Maybe you'll grow a little bit. 10x is the big jump that's scary, and you're like, I could totally what's this going to cost me? Maybe everything, but I'm going for it anyway.
And that's it.
Right. And so the people that haven't yet done that, or they haven't recognized that they've done it, and that they've been successful at doing that, and they've gotten stuck in that mindset of negativity, and then just towards you.
It cracks me up because God gives us all unique gifts and talents. He gives us unique things. I mean, you'll see, and it can be showcased in the craziest way, Yep. But I have family members that I'm like, you are you are like, what is the lady's name? Mindy Weiss. Remember the wedding planner of all the 2000s, and she did everybody's wedding. I'm like, you're a Mindy Weiss. You could be doing celebrity weddings. You're like the way that you throw events, and it's just with ease and grace because God gave you that gift, and you did nothing with it. Right. And then, I have friends. Oh, you're the world's best baker. You could have a bakery shop. You can do that, and you do nothing with it. Right. You make the best boards and this and that and da 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 da. And what are you doing with it? We can end up giving our gifts over to the wrong people instead of using them for the glory of God. Right. And when we use it for the glory of God, He compounds it. When we use it for the glory of other people or don't use it at all.
That's right.
Right? He can't work with that. But when we go to your glory, for your glory, I'm going to use this gift. God, use me. Right. So pray that prayer. Use me, Lord.
Yes.
Use me. Use the gifts that you have given me. I'm open to it.
I'm a vessel. Work through me.
And
I'm a conduit.
That's it. And give me discernment to know when and where to use these gifts. Give me the gift of discernment to know, is this a yes, or is this you, or is this my flesh? Is my flesh being fed here? Do I just like doing this? You know what I mean? And I experienced this more in childhood, but watching people that were so good at, talented at these things. And I go, okay, so they do all these things and they do them for everybody else, but they don't do them it's not actually for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's actually for them, because if they do it for everyone else, then they feel like, oh, look, see, all these people like me now. All these people love me now. They love me now because I did this thing
dangerous.
For them. Right. That's not for God.
No.
And God He can't compound that. You want Him to multiply. We're supposed to live supernatural lives. I decree it. I'm living a supernatural life. Y'all gonna catch me in 10 years and be like, I'm just so confused. I already told Courtney I'm gonna be sending her a shoe dazzle box every single month. That was our promise. I want
penny loafers.
She wants penny loafers. I said, when I make it, Courtney, and I'm sending you a box of shoe dazzles every single month. I'm like, because you have the best shoes ever.
So you just hit on something that's really important. Is you mentioned the sort of the being a child, from the time they're children, right? So we have two things to do, I think, is raising our kids with that mindset is huge. And I am hammering that into my teenager right now, even. It's like, hey, whatever you're slightly interested in, even if there's an inkling of interest, go for it, because you're either going to win or you'll learn something from it.
Right.
And when you start getting better at something, you like it more.
Right.
Then you turn into loving it, and it's a passion, right? So the other thing is, I think it's really important to do is to go back to when you were a kid and think about, okay, what was it you wanted to do when you were a kid? What did you love doing? Where were you spending your time? Maybe it was crafting or something. But I mean, I think back and it's like, okay, I wanted to, when I was 7, 8, 9, I wanted to own a jewelry store. I had this whole plan for it. And I still love jewelry to this day.
Yes. She looked at me right before we filmed. I have to tell them this. Before we started filming, she goes, I'm just looking at you sad because you have no jewelry on. And I was like, well, you have enough jewelry on for both of us. So why don't you hand me some?
Share the love.
I was like, you have like 17 gold. Like, I mean, like you're dripped right now. Like, okay, I see.
So I wanted to own a jewelry store. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I remember that word and learning what it was and being like, oh, I'm doing that. That sounds amazing. And I want to be a Goodwill ambassador.
Right.
3 very different things. Then I got to college. I wanted to be a teacher and a principal. Am I doing all of those things? Like, no, I'm not doing that in terms of a career, but do I still love all those things?
Right.
Yeah, I still love all those things. So think back to what really like got your juices flowing when you were a kid. And that's God. Like that's God. That's all good. Those are things that you can build into right now.
Right.
And then, what can we do as adults is we can teach our kids that mindset so they can grow into it too, so they don't get stuck in the very easy way of negativity and jealousy and putting wealth first before everything else.
Totally. Well, I know that we probably should wrap up pretty soon here. So
we could just stay on an island together and have endless things.
Well, it was so funny when I asked Courtney to do this podcast. I said, would you want to do this? She's like, talking to you for an hour? Duh. I'm like, right. I'm like, because we could just go forever. And we usually do. But I want to talk about the for believers who have a hard time wrapping their head around wealth, right? Okay. Because that's been such a strong point of conviction for a lot of people, is they're like, no, for followers of Jesus, we're supposed to be poor. Blessed are the poor. Rich people are going to have a harder time, which they will. That part's true. But they, so that means we just have to really make sure that with our wealth, we manage it correctly, steward it correctly, give in generosity correctly, give things away. So, we're supposed to make sure no one around us has need, is what it says. It said so that none of them had need, not want. Because I got people around, I have it around me. I've seen people that are wealthy that have experienced it, where the people around them think they're entitled to that. You're not entitled to nothing. You're not entitled to anybody's money. It does not matter how much money they have in the bank. You aren't entitled to anything. Their job, if they are a believer in Jesus Christ, is to ensure that no one has need among them. You don't need a bigger house. You just need to make sure you have somewhere to sleep. You don't need to eat at 5-star restaurants all the time like they do. That's called coveting. You need to just make sure that you at least have a can of beans up in there to be able to feed yourself. I'm just being real. So people have to get that out of their head that anyone owes you anything. No one owes you their money. No one owes you their fame, their celebrity, their money, they don't owe you anything.
And when we work hard and work smart, it doesn't mean we're going to have any sort of outcome that's tied to wealth at all. That's not the point of what we're talking about at all.
Correct.
It's, again, going back to Stephen Covey, it's first things first.
Right.
You put God first in your life.
Right.
You get in tune with what he's calling you to do in your unique way.
Right.
And you step into that without any fear, all in the adventure. Everyone's going to be in different roles. There's different holes in our universe, right? And everyone's going to be, I referee at my kid's basketball game. We look at the people who are, clerking at the restaurants we're eating at, or the stores, all these things. There is a role and a fit for everyone. And God has called all of us into our places.
Right.
So live into where that calling is at that season in your life, and just keep examining and checking in. Right. It's not like you do it once and then you're done. You just keep assessing, keep praying, putting God's first. And that's, to me, that's that creativity. That's people step into it and things will fall where they will.
But that's a scary place for most people, because reintroducing yourself, if you grow at the rate in which you probably should be, which is continuously, right? Throughout your life, we should be continuing to self-examine, reassess how we do things, why we do things, all these things. It's actually one of the most terrifying places to be, because what you'll notice is as you grow, as you re-examine your life, as you surrender your life over to God and say, okay, actually, maybe I was doing it all wrong, right? That's a terrifying place to be for most people, because most people get their value from their external circumstances or their relationships.
Right.
So if you are at risk of losing a relationship, if you grow too much, you're not going to grow too much if your value comes from them. If you are at risk of losing your identity because your identity is tied to an organization or tied to a certain job title that you have, or you're right. If you're at risk of losing that, then you will not grow, because you don't want to lose that. Right. So it roots back to, how do I come into deeper intimacy with the Lord so that my value comes solely from him, so that it does not matter if anyone stays around me. I love them all. I would love that.
Or any of my things are around
Come
me.
Come on, Courtney. Come on. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, so all that to say, okay, circling back to money not being evil, right? So what it says in the Bible in, let's see, in 1 Timothy 6, it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Now, it says for the love of money. So I looked up what the love of money means in the Greek. It means love of money. It literally means exactly what it says. And then it means avarice. And avarice means extreme greed for wealth or material gain. Do you see? There's a difference. There's a difference. Having money is not what the problem was. The problem was if you have extreme greed for wealth or material gain. What does greed look like? It means hoarding it. It means not ensuring that the people around you are taking care, their needs, not wants, their needs are met. It means not ensuring that you're giving many alms to the poor. It means not ensuring that you don't glorify the money over God, right? So that's what the problem is. It's not having it.
It reminds me of that proverb. I don't know which one it is.
I'm like, tell me more.
But I can tell you the proverb. It's where your treasure is, there your heart will be.
Oh, yeah, there your heart will lie. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Hold on. Let me see if I can find that one.
And then another verse says to guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Yeah.
So it's what's most important to you, because that's where your value is.
It was Matthew 6:21.
No, it's a proverb.
It literally says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Matthew 6:21.
Okay, I'll take that. I know it's a proverb too.
She's like, no, it's a proverb. I'm like, no, but it literally says it.
It is though too. Like I can't remember which one it is, but it could be. I mean, obviously there's verses that are
there's a lot
throughout.
of
Thank you
verses,
for finding that.
Yeah, there's a lot of verses actually that I feel like coincide each other. Because even this one, the podcast is named "Let Them Hear," and I was telling Kurt, I want to name the podcast, and I said something that wasn't as good, and my husband, of course, because he's great at everything, was like, "Why don't you just call it Let Them Hear?" And I was like, "Oh,
why don't you?" Just
I was like,
just make it easy,
right? It's like my buddy Dave with there's a locally ice cream shop called Taste and See.
Oh yeah,
and it's so good, and I love the name, and it's like obviously like a reference to the the Bible verse, "Taste and See that the Lord is good," the Psalm, and they were gonna name it like, what is it, Psalms 34?
Psalm Courtney.
Is it like Psalm 34 or something like that?
Don't ask
34, 32? I don't know, girl. I'm an evangelist. I did not say I'm a theologian.
Signal. I'm going to look up that proverb and be like, showing you.
Right. But it was funny because they were going to name it like Psalms 34 or whatever. And he's like, why don't you just name it Taste and See? So that's like what I went through with my husband. And he's like, why don't you just name it Let Them Hear? And I was like, yeah. And then I opened my Bible and I got into Matthew and I said, this isn't what I was talking about though, but it said, to those who have ears, let them hear. And I went, but this wasn't the verse. Right. And so I went into my bedroom and I said, Lord, you showed me a verse. It was like 2 days prior. And I said, you showed me a verse. Please show me the verse. My Bible's closed. Okay. I said, show me the verse. I opened the Bible. I can't make this up. I end up on Ezekiel 3 and right there it was. There it was.
Well, I mean, the crossover between Old Testament and New Testament,
right.
With the, obviously the prophecy is fulfilled. And so Jesus
So we're saying all that to say that Courtney's probably right. It probably isn't a proverb too.
Thanks. That makes me feel
but it's also
better.
in Matthew. But I want to wrap it up by essentially just seeing if there's anything else that you want to share in regards to finance or friendship, if there's any nuggets of knowledge that you want to leave. And I usually end the each podcast with some sort of challenge. So I'm going to let you pick the challenge this week.
Okay.
Give them a challenge.
So I always like to summarize my client meetings or even conversations with friends, just because we always touch on so much.
Yeah.
So let's explore the themes that we really hit on. I think the self-examination for any role that you're in, because of that Dan Sullivan quote, how you do one thing is how you do anything.
Right.
So that self-examination is in becoming more self-aware on a daily basis. We need it because we're human and we just get so busy getting distracted. And then on the finance side, I think just knowing that it's never too late to start being wise with your money.
Right.
And speaking with a financial planner is a really great way to start because it's all about prioritization. We even have a checklist that's like, okay, here's the first thing you need to do given your unique circumstance, your age, what it is you're trying to do. Not one person is going to be able to follow this next person's path.
Right.
People want to do that, but nope, you're going to be paving your own way.
Right.
So why not pray into it and have God leading that way for you?
Right.
Right. So I would say those are two of the big takeaways from at least what I heard we spoke about. But a challenge in terms of where you want to spend your time, go back and reflect on what you loved doing as a kid. Like what really got you excited, right?
That is good.
What kind of business did you want to start? What did you create that you loved creating? Who did you love spending time with? And why were they fun to you? Right. So,
now, what about people that had depressing childhoods? I'm not trying to be negative, Nancy. I'm just saying a lot of people, I know a lot of people that have had a lot of trauma in their childhoods. So they actually, their current behavior or lack of ability to move forward with things or steward things well is actually a repercussion of that. So what if, for those people, would you give them a different assignment or would you tell them to focus on something super specific?
Well, in that case, go see a therapist.
Okay.
Right? Okay. There's a lot of things to sort through. I say that in all seriousness.
No, I know.
To really get some things sorted through. That's tough. I think here's a good task. At any point, you could even draw a picture. So draw a picture and just think about a memory. Maybe it's a lunchbox that you had, or maybe it was a place you always walked to. Maybe it was a teacher who said something. So it will be more difficult to think about something that really brought you joy. And that might be a stretch of a word if you are really holding pain and suffering from that time in your life. But there's got to be a seed of something in there that brought you to the point to even listening to this podcast, to caring, to want to move forward, right? So it's got to be someone spoke into you, a mentor. I don't know, maybe it was like when you ran in track and field and the feeling of running was like an escape, or it's got to be something. Find out what that was and maybe journal about it or draw a timeline and say, hey, one time this student gave me a Valentine and it really made me happy.
Right.
Think about what it is. And even when you're in that moment of trying to think about it, it may not come, but you've given yourself the assignment. So maybe like, the week goes on and something comes to mind and you have this light bulb and write it down.
Right. That's good. Thank you. That was perfect.
Re-script it. Bring God into those moments. Right? There's a book I read recently. I can't remember which one it was, but that's what they did was they had a timeline and they just wrote some things down, identifying things that came to mind from kindergarten to say 4th grade, 8th grade. And then they invited God into those moments of pain or into whatever showed up. And they now had a 45-year-old script to that experience they had as a 6-year-old that was terrible.
Right.
But now they're praying God into that moment and learning something from
rewriting it. Yeah.
So they don't have those negative associations anymore. I might be simplifying it, but it's still a good exercise.
No, I love that. Okay. Thank you for blessing the people. I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, friends.
You are amazing. I love you so much.
I love you.
And Courtney's going to finish her book in Jesus' name. And then when it is done, we're going to be promoting that on this show. But until then, we're going to promote mine from the beginning, Unveiling the Ordered Principles to Craft Your Dream Life. You should pop on Amazon and go ahead and grab that now. And
that's right.
Yeah, we'll be talking to you soon. All right.
Thank you.
I'm out.